Hello everyone and welcome to the final video of me talking about the things I've learned in my introductory psychology class this semester. We'll be going over the last two chapters today on psychotherapy and just touch a little bit on social psychology. These are the last two chapters of the class, so this is my last video. So let's get started. Let's play that intro music one more time. Chapter 13 was all about the different types of psychotherapy, so let's start by just defining what exactly psychotherapy is. And basically it is a systematic interaction between a client and a therapist, where the therapist uses psychological principles, meaning a lot of the different things that we've learned in all these different videos, to affect the client's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Psychotherapy can be used to treat psychological disorders, help people overcome them, but it can also be used to just help somebody adjust to problems in their life or to develop more as an individual. It's important to remember, you don't have to have a psychological disorder. There doesn't have to be anything wrong with you for you to go to therapy. A lot of people use therapy just to better themselves as individuals. Alright, the first type of therapy that we'll touch on is cognitive therapy. This is all about focusing on the mental processes for a patient. It's about changing their beliefs, their attitudes, and automatic types of thinking that may be the source of somebody's psychological disorders. Albert Ellis and Aaron Beck were two pioneering psychologists in this field. And Albert Ellis actually came up with this theory called the rational emotive behavior therapy, which essentially states that somebody's beliefs about an event that is happening is just as important as the event itself. How people are interpreting the situations around them can be very important, and you can use cognitive therapy to help somebody understand their interpretations of the events and maybe understand if they're interpreting it correctly or not. Up next is behavioral therapy. This focuses all on the client's behavior and reshaping it and changing it through techniques like observational learning or conditioning. And this process is what's known as behavior modification. B.F. Skinner and Jean Piaget were two of the psychologists that were prominent for their work in the field of behavioral psychology. Next is psychodynamic therapy, and this is all about trying to understand and find the unconscious motives for our behavior and thought patterns. Psychodynamic therapy is based in a lot of Freud's theories, which states that our early childhood experiences and unconscious desires that we may not even be aware of are the source of a lot of the thoughts and feelings that we have. So if you use psychodynamic therapy, you can begin to understand what exactly those experiences were, what are those thoughts that you might not be aware of, and once you learn what they are, you can then use that information to change your thoughts and feelings currently and then your behaviors as a result. Humanistic psychology is a field of psychology most closely associated with Carl Rogers and Abraham Maslow, and it's all about focusing on the client's ability to make choices every day to better themselves. It's about raising your conscious awareness through being present. And by doing that, by being present and by being aware of your thoughts and feelings, you can begin to understand, is what I'm thinking and feeling rational? Is it irrational and giving me anxiety as a result? And once you understand that process and you understand what you're thinking and feeling, you can then begin to change your thoughts, change your feelings, change your behaviors in a positive way. Next is biological therapy, otherwise known as biomedical or drug therapy. And this is about changing the biological structures in somebody to help modify their thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Some examples of this would be using antidepressants to alter the chemical balances in the brain, or doing procedures like electroconvulsive therapy to alter the brain chemistry. Next is group therapy. This involves having multiple clients or patients and just one therapist, and the idea is by having multiple people that have more or less the same psychological disorders or problems, they can work together to lift each other up and get better. Alcoholics Anonymous is a great example of group therapy. Everybody there has to some degree a problem with alcohol, and they work together to talk about their experiences, talk about things that help them so that that knowledge can then be passed to other people who are going through the same issues. The last one we talked about is family therapy. This is when more than one family member sits down in a therapy session with the therapist, and the therapist may use what's known as the systems approach to understand how the family interacts and kind of what the dynamics are, so that this can begin the process of growth at the individual level and at the group level. Meaning, if a brother is having a bunch of problems with the brother and the parents, that brother on the individual level can grow to be a better person and to interact in a more healthy way with the family. Then the rest of the family can also grow too and learn to interact with the brother and themselves in more positive ways. Well, that's all we learned for Chapter 13 on the different types of therapies. Let's just talk a little bit now about social psychology. Now, we learned that psychology is about understanding the mental processes and behaviors of somebody. Social psychology is all about kind of zooming that out and looking at the mental behaviors and processes from a group level. Why does somebody act a certain way when they're in a social setting versus by themselves? Social psychology seeks to understand what kind of goes on there and what the dynamics are in groups of people. Now, we didn't go too far in depth in social psychology, and I hope to take a whole class at some point to go a lot more in depth in this subject, but we instead just focused on some terms that are associated with what I refer to as the great dichotomy of our existence: hate or fear, and love. So let's take a minute to look at some of the terms associated with hate or fear: stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination. Now, stereotyping is just holding a belief that all people of a certain group share similar traits or characteristics. Prejudice, on the other hand, is an attitude that causes you to have negative feelings about a particular group of people. You kind of lump a group of people all together and say, I don't like that group of people. Discrimination is sort of acting on maybe some of the stereotypes that you have, some of the prejudice that you have, because discrimination is hostile behavior towards that particular group of people that you don't like. Stereotypes and prejudice are all just mental processes, while discrimination is more the behavior aspect. You're acting on those prejudices that you have. Okay, now let's switch gears a little bit and talk about something that I really enjoy. Let's talk about love. Well, we learned 3 different terms associated with fear and hatred. We learned that love can be composed of 3 different concepts known as intimacy, passion, and commitment. And different types of love can have various levels of these 3 components here. So what is intimacy? Intimacy is just a close relationship or strong familiarity with somebody. You often share your innermost feelings with them. We didn't learn this specifically in class, but if I may editorialize a bit, I think intimacy involves a certain level of trust too, because you have to trust somebody to share those innermost feelings you have with them. Passion is strong romantic or sexual feelings towards somebody where you're very into this person, you have a strong desire to be with them, but you maybe don't have that level of intimacy where you're not sharing your close secrets with them, and you don't have the sense of commitment that we'll talk about next. So what is commitment? Commitment is the decision to maintain a relationship. That meaning over time you have to grow, you have to do things to make sure that relationship stays healthy. You don't have strong commitment if you enter a relationship and are never willing to change or try to adapt in some way to help your partner and you grow in the relationship. Commitment involves the maintenance of a relationship. So we learned that passion, intimacy, and commitment are kind of the 3 ingredients to make love what it is. So let's look at different types of love and what some of those ingredients might look like. First, we learned about romantic love. This is the combination of intimacy and passion. You're physically lovers and emotionally attracted to each other, but without the long-term commitment. And one of the examples used to describe romantic love is, think of like a summer romance where you go off to camp and you meet somebody, you're super into them for a few months, but then you go back home and the relationship just sort of ends because it's lacking the commitment. It's just intimacy and passion. On the other hand, there's companionate love, which is a combination of intimacy and commitment. You share your innermost feelings with them, they're a close friend. This might be a marriage, for example, where you're very close, you share all your secrets with each other, and you're continually working to maintain the relationship, but you maybe don't have that fiery passion or super strong desire. Maybe you don't have a sexual attraction to the person anymore, but you're still very close and you want to be with that person as long as you can. Then last is consummate love. This is a combination of intimacy, passion, and commitment. It is considered the complete love. This is the real deal. And there you have it, folks. That's all for chapters 13 and 14. I know it was kind of a quick hit, but we didn't spend a lot of time talking about those two chapters. But that is it for this introductory psychology class. I've really enjoyed dipping my toes into the world of psychology this semester, and I hope to further my studies by taking other classes in the future. Maybe I'll be making some more videos with new classes that I take later on. I hope you've learned something through these videos, and I hope you have found a renewed passion for learning like I have throughout this semester. How fitting it was that we ended on social psychology and learning a little bit about hate and fear and love. I think every day we have an opportunity to wake up and make choices in the name of hatred or make choices in the name of love. What choices are you going to make today? Are you going to choose to love yourself? Are you going to choose to love those around you? I know I will. I'll see you around, everybody.